What up, nerds? Welcome to another silent but deadly episode of Straight Chilling, the weekly horror movie review show where you chill and we kill, slice, dice, and chop up yet another horror movie. My name's Bob. I'll be your host for this evening. This is episode number 321, recorded on Monday, May 31st, 2021. Tonight we're going to be talking about the latest and greatest from John Krasinski himself, A Quiet Place Part 2. Before we get into it, let me introduce everyone else on the show tonight. First up, calling in from Washington, D.C., we got our boy, Randy Gandy G. Landy. What's up?
Hello, gentlemen.
Hey, everybody, how's it going? We're going to ASMR this whole episode.
Hey, buddy. How's it hanging?
What's going on, everybody? I have nothing more to add to that bit. I'm abandoning it, and we're moving on.
Let us continue. Last but not least, calling in from my immediate left, we got our boy, Soju. What's up, man?
What up, bitch boy? Hush, stains. Hey, girl.
Hey.
What was that?
You gotta put that baby in a box, Soju. Come on.
What was that Yin Yang Twin song? Where
The
they
whisper
just
song.
Whispered the whole time. I couldn't remember any of the lyrics.
I think it's wait till you see my screenplay.
Hey, girl. Wait till you see that screenplay.
That's what Krasinski said too.
That's the Damon approach.
His lovely wife Emily Blunt. Wait till you see my screenplay.
Whoa. Got her riled up.
Oh, man.
I wrote this one.
She got a twofer out of it.
I wrote this one for you.
It's called A Quiet Place. Do you get it?
Wink, wink.
Oh, boys. We are back
Just
in the
cast-
theaters. It feels nice. It feels right to be in the theaters again. Safely, of course. Safely.
Yep.
I was in a bubble.
Proceed with caution.
Rolled your ass down there.
It's our bubble
yeah.
boy. He's got a
I
big,
zorbed my ass down.
big Straight Chilling logo on the side. Like, hey, is that Rollin' Randy from Straight Chilling?
Rolling around.
Rolling Randy. That's
You
what they call
spot
me
him,
around
tag
these
him on
parts.
Instagram.
You've got a boombox with Limp Bizkit playing Rollin', Rollin', Rollin'.
I feel like it would take 1 minute for me to be pushed into a gutter or some shit by some local youths. I mean,
hope
that's
so.
what I would do.
Some local utes.
Local youths.
Gentlemen, before we dive into the main event, let's tackle some housekeeping real quick. Here is your very final reminder. There's like 3 or 4 hours left to vote on our June poll pick, which is currently posted on our Patreon website. If you support us at the $5 level or above, you get the chance to vote on a movie we're talking about this June. The theme for June's vehicular manslaughter. The 3 movies to vote between are Christine, Joyride, and Rubber.
Oh, Bob, how are those numbers looking in the final hours?
You know, they are just a flipping and a flopping, dude.
Uh-oh.
It's been going back and forth between Rubber and Christine. Right now, Rubber is in the lead yet again, just by a single vote.
Man.
So we're getting down the wire. We'll see who is the victor and what we're going to be talking about this June.
It's been back and forth. Joyride, unfortunately, fell off, but it was pretty close for a while.
It was, yeah.
I mean, even those two, it's like they're very different movies.
Yeah.
It's interesting how close that is.
Yeah.
And of course, starting tomorrow, there will be a new poll posted on our Patreon website.
What's it gonna be?
I didn't read what you typed up, Randy. So why don't you tell us? Because I don't want to say it wrong.
Randy,
what did you label
what is
it?
the next
Rob,
poll?
why don't you subscribe to my fucking Twitter so you know that it's hot blood summer around these parts?
I'm actually pretty excited about this one. We landed on this one, and the 3 movies that we picked were I Know What You Did Last Summer,
Yep.
Jaws,
Yep.
Independence Day.
Yeah.
So even though we'll probably cast a little after 4th of July, definitely all summer 4th of July themes going on
4th
there.
of July.
So, boys, spooky season is coming up. Speaking of 4th of July.
Yep. Starting July
time.
5th.
This is the last poll pick before spooky season
Yeah.
officially kicks off here at the Straight
I
Chilling
can
headquarters.
feel a cold wind blow.
Oh, I love it. I love it.
Oh, yeah.
I literally cannot. I might actually have a sunburn.
You must have walked to your mailbox then.
Yeah, oh yeah. That's true.
That's some
It
shade.
doesn't take much, Lord knows.
That's more shade than Randy got when he was walking to his mailbox.
That's exactly right.
Tell you what. In other Patreon news, we have one brand new sexual Patreon supporter. We got to give mad shouts
Not
out.
sexual.
So
Wait, wait,
sexual.
wait, wait.
Regular.
Somebody subscribe to our sexual Patreon?
Sexual Patreon.
Does that mean I got to post those nudes?
I don't want to get regulated over here.
Your sunburnt ass needs to go right on to the
I
the
can
World
finally
Wide
make
Web.
good use of the butt plug I've been carrying for 6 months.
God damn.
Lord.
Have you been carrying it?
Welcome all new listeners.
You got to carry it
for
to
this
term,
new film
Rob.
that's been released.
To term. Anyway, big thanks to Connor D for signing up and supporting us on Patreon. It really does mean a lot to us. Every dollar you guys contribute goes right back into the show. And as is tradition around these parts, we owe Connor the straight chilling salute. This one goes out to Connor.
Slap me in the ass.
Thank you, Connor Big D.
Appreciate it. Old Connor with the big D. That's all we got going on for Patreon. Juice, you got any YouTube, Twitch stuff?
Dude, it's feast or famine over here at the Straight Chilling Headquarters YouTube. That's youtube.com/Straight Chilling Podcast. So the first of the month happens to drop on a top 5 Tuesday, but I think we're going to postpone it maybe till Thursday because we also have a reactions video that we need to drop for Last Night in Soho. And that trailer actually dropped like last week, so I kind of want to get it out.
Yeah.
So this week you should get 2 new videos on YouTube. We are talking about the new Edgar Wright Last Night in Soho video trailer. That's going to be released in October, the actual film, but he dropped a new trailer last week. We were really curious about it, wanted to check it out. Seems interesting. So if you want to hear our thoughts about that, that's going to be on YouTube. Also, Top 5 Tuesday, which is a new top 5 list. Since we did a mini cast on Spiral, I decided to talk about top 5 Saw traps.
Nice.
That's
a good list.
Did you have to review all of them?
Oh, I went through all of them.
Oh my God.
Did you really
poor
go through
son of
every
a
single
bitch.
one?
I have seen all the Saw films.
True,
and
yeah.
I went back and like refreshed on like
Damn,
every
dude.
single trap that occurred.
But you didn't watch every film again.
I did not watch every film again. No.
Well, at least thank God for that.
bless your soul.
I did a refresher. So that's going to be dropping top 5 Thursday this week.
Nice.
So on top of like the behind the scenes and the cast that's coming out this week. So yeah.
Yeah,
some new stuff.
And I'm
popping.
also going to be dropping another mini cast some point later this week. We've got a few in the bag. I'm not sure exactly which one I'm going to drop yet, but if you do support us on Patreon, you get exclusive access to bonus content. I think we're pushing somewhere around like 40 bonus episodes already, and we release them constantly
You are
throughout the
pushing
year.
40.
Not quite, my dog.
Not quite
Not
yet.
quite. But
Pushing.
we'll be dropping another mini cast to our Patreon supporters later this week as well. So there's plenty of straight chilling content coming at you.
Oh, yeah.
Last but not least, big thanks to everybody that hung out with us this past Friday for our Joe Bob live watch party. He showed Train to Busan and Spookies, which wow,
Spookies.
wow, those are
Yeah,
some.
let me call this out a scotch
Wow.
because the description. I was here with Bob. Unfortunately, I wasn't on the chat, but
Spookies.
I was here with Bob when they dropped Train to Busan. I was super excited, a little like nostalgic. Now it's like all these little like Korean things going
So
on.
you're talking about the hints that Joe Bob put out?
Yeah, Joe Bob was like, I was like, Bob, what do you think Joe Bob's gonna drop tonight? And he read me the description, like the hints that he drops, and it was like, it's cosmic horror that like,
Yeah.
and that like nails one script and like confuses the other or something. And I was like, how is Train to Busan? I don't know what Spookies is, but how is Train to Busan in any way considered cosmic horror?
I don't know, man. Honestly, couldn't explain it.
What is that old coot up to?
What's
Is
he
losing
doing?
his mind?
I don't think that Joe Bob has any desire for anyone to guess correctly. I think that's the goal.
I guess.
Yeah,
but, I
it's
mean,
pretty
like that's
vague.
just so incorrect.
Anyways,
I mean, clearly people love guessing anyway, so whatever.
Yeah.
it's fun. Thanks for everybody that hung out this past Friday. If you are interested in joining us for this coming Friday, I think we've got 3 weeks left. Joe Bob shows a double feature every Friday at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, and we post a link to join our live watch party on Zoom to all of our social media accounts just before showtime on Friday. So keep an eye out for that if you'd like to join in on the watch party. I think that's all we got for our housekeeping. Our houses are collectively clean.
This house is clean.
And without further ado, let's talk about the main event, Quiet Place Part 2. We're kicking it off with the back of the box.
What's on the back of the box?
All right. Obviously, there's not a box yet, but you can pre-order the 4K online already if you want to.
Jesus Christ.
Which is nuts, yeah.
The movie
Thank
industry
God.
is so fucking
What about the
weird.
8K? When's the 8K coming
Dude,
out?
I don't know. They haven't started putting that to disc yet. I'm sure it's a matter of time.
When's the blue steel box coming? Coming.
Quiet Place Part 2. This was written and directed by John Krasinski from The Office fame. This is PG-13 movie. I know we talk about PG-13 horror, sometimes good, sometimes not. I think it's interesting to keep that in mind here throughout this conversation.
Think about that, yeah.
A runtime of 1 hour and 37 minutes. Stars Emily Blunt, Millicent Simmons, Cillian Murphy, some other folks. Plot synopsis is as follows. Following the events at home, the Abbott family now face the terrors of the outside world. Forced to venture into the unknown, they realize the creature that hunt by sound are not the only threats lurking beyond the sand path. Gentlemen's brand new movie. I know this is our first time watching it. Would you recommend people check it out? Randy?
Yeah, if you like the first one, I say definitely check this one out. It's right along the same vein. They do a good job of sort of recapturing some of what they got in the first one, in my opinion. And yeah, I think, and it's also like for PG-13 horror, this is about as good as it's going to get this year, I'm assuming. So there's not going to be a whole lot that that really hit that mark as well as being, worth your time, unless you're looking for something a lot sillier than this, I would say. So I would say yes, generally.
Sweet deal. Juice, what about you?
Yeah, I would recommend too. Of the new horror that's come out, I would say if you want to go see one in the theaters, go check this one out. I think it deserves that. I don't think it's necessary. It would still be a good watch if you watch it on streaming later. I feel like the movie theater is absolutely required, this big spectacle, but I had a lot of fun watching this in the theater. It was nice to get back to the theater, and I think this warrants the trip out, to watch it, if you feel comfortable getting out. So yeah, I would recommend people check this out in the theaters. Bob, what do you think?
You got something to add, Randy?
Yeah, I was just going to say, I actually might disagree and say that this movie is, like the first one, best actually suited for in-theater viewing because it's so heavily centered on the surround sound. I guess it depends on the circumstances of your home theater or whatever.
Yeah.
I don't have a great one. So for me, it would have been a lot, it was a lot more impactful because I could get full effect of the Foley effects and things like that.
That's fair.
So,
yeah.
All right. Bob, would you recommend
if you're
people
comfortable
check this out in the theaters?
I recommend checking it out. I wouldn't say run out to the theater to watch it necessarily, unless you just want to get out of the house, which is understandable. It's very much along the lines of the first movie. For me, it feels, Juice, you mentioned it's a little unnecessary of a sequel. I feel that pretty hard, to be honest with you, when I'm watching this. It's very much a middle movie too, so there's not much of a conclusion to this. Which bothers me a little bit. Not a bad movie though. I do recommend watching it. I wouldn't necessarily say run out to the theater for it though. For me,
Get ready to be crucified, Bob.
oh boy,
Get him, Randy.
get him. Yeah, it did feel good to be back in the theater though. I said it once. I'll say it many, many times.
Which, to be fair, we were in that same theater 3 months ago to watch St. Maud. Let's not kid ourselves.
That's true.
I'm sitting here what? I actually weirdly, I wound up in the exact same theater in the exact same, literally the same auditorium that I was in to watch the first Quiet Place, which is for me, having traveled so much, was pretty
Nice.
bananas.
That is pretty wild.
And there was a grand total of 11 people in like a 100-person theater, so it worked out
that's
real nice.
actually, I like that kind of right now. I know it's not going to last forever, and I don't like it necessarily for the sake of theater's health, but financially. But I like it as just like an experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I always like matinees anyway, so for me, that's pretty much the ideal going rate, as long as COVID's not a concern, which for me, fortunately, is not.
We're invincible.
Right.
Yeah. I'm a superhuman. I got a vaccine and now I can lift cars.
I've seen him do it. Sounds like a pretty solid recommend from the Straight Chilling crew. Let's go ahead and drop that spoiler warning, and we're getting into the rest of the movie. Here we go.
Spoiler warning.
All right. I did not type up a plot synopsis for this.
Oh my
no plot
God.
synopsis.
Rob, that's the only thing you do as far as I know.
true.
I
It's
guess
as
Juice
far
has to
as
carry the weight
I
again.
I'm gonna tell you what happens in the movie. I just didn't write it down.
Okay, so like Jim from The Office is like, oh, there's a sound boogin.
A sound boogin.
Yeah.
Sound Boogans Part 3. I can't wait. I would watch the fuck out of a movie called Sound Boogans.
There's a movie called Boogans.
I haven't.
you
I've
seen
watched it.
Oh, really? I haven't seen it yet. Recommend or no?
It's
Tell me quick.
yeah, I'd recommend it.
Dear God, is it a DVD, Bob?
Yeah, where is my Boogans? I'm
Dear
trying to-
God.
Dear God.
Oh, my sweet Jesus baby Christ fucker.
The Boogans. There it is, right there.
Wait, is
The
it blue or
Boogans.
not?
It's a blue. It's a blue
Okay,
Boogan.
thank
There is
God.
no escape. The Boogan.
There is a slip.
There is no
Blue
escape.
Boogans matter, boys.
God damn it. Damn it.
Blue Boogans.
This movie.
New T-shirt from Straight Chilling coming.
No, there is not.
Outright
a new t-shirt
refuse.
from Straight Chilling coming. It's not going to say that. It'll say 69 me to death. I don't know. 69 to death.
That is significantly higher on the ladder of possibility.
Guess it'll just have to be my hand-drawn heart.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah, you know what? Release it under your own name, please.
Gay Chilling.
Soju
Here we go.
Apparel.
Gay Chilling. That's right. Spinoff cast.
Stains Apparel. That sends the wrong message, I guess.
Stained Apparel. This movie pretty much picks up right where the last one left off. We're with the Abbott family. They're living out in the middle of nowhere. Daddy Krasinski sacrifices himself to save his kids' lives at the end of the first movie. And they're trying to figure out how to carry on with their lives. They decide to follow the path towards a burning fire that they see in the distance to try and link up with some other survivors. And along the way, they come across Cillian Murphy. He's got a little compound. Exactly.
That's my Cillian Murphy bump.
He's a silly Murphy. Some sort of like factory he's living in. There's like a big basement in it.
It's like a granary or something.
Yeah, something like that. So they come across him. They end up crashing with him for a little while. They've got a newborn child with them that they're carrying in this sort of soundproof case with a little O2 canister strapped to the baby's face so that he can breathe. The child, the little girl, decides that she's going to take off on her own. They come across this like radio message. It's this song playing that's like, you know, across the sea or whatever, and she figures out like, oh, it's a broadcast that someone's sending from a nearby island. So she's going to go try and reach the island and contact the survivors over there. So she takes off on her own. Cillian Murphy goes after her to try and stop her. He ends up teaming up with her, and they just carry on the adventure themselves. They end up grabbing a boat, reaching the island. The monsters end up also reaching the island and wreaking havoc. While that's going on, Mama Abbott strikes out. She goes to the pharmacy to get more medicine for her children. The little son Abbott leaves the baby behind. Monster gets in, and just in the nick of time, little girl Abbott on the island broadcasts this very high-pitched noise by way of her hearing aid, which the monsters cannot handle, and it ends up saving both her and Cillian Murphy's lives, and also, unbeknownst to her, the lives of her mother and brother that are still on the mainland. And that's sort of where the credits roll. The family is separated, but also everybody is still alive at the end of it. That's about it. Let's dive into it.
There you go.
Let's dissect
Diving
this.
in. Let's dive in.
I made the huge mistake of not watching the first movie again, and also not even listening to our cast on the first film to kind of get a refresher. So I'm going back. I was going back now to see what I
was
rated
hoping
it.
you would bring the info on that, actually.
Well, actually, no. I was kind of surprised. In my head, I thought I rated this a 4. It seems like the scores for the first one were 3 for Bob, 3 for Randy, 3.5 from me, and then we had a guess. I think I'm trying to track it down now. It's so hard to see it on my phone. It might have been Brad with a 4
I think it was
star.
Brad. Yeah.
So Brad with a 4, which is what I thought I rated it. In my head, this is the first film is kind of like a 4-star film. I feel like that's one that I might tweak, even though I haven't seen it again. So I really do think that was a mistake on my part. I should have watched this again. Did you guys watch it again?
Yeah, I revisited it.
I did not.
Yeah, we fucked up, Randy.
I didn't. The thing is, I had a thing with this movie. The original, to me, I remember being pretty hard on it, and I feel like that now. I feel like maybe I was harder on that movie than I needed to be.
I remember that.
And I was kind of wary of that, but I should have rewatched the movie and refreshed myself that way, and just had gone in fresh. But I was going in with that baggage with this one, so I kind of had a little bit of a journey with this movie, where it was not. I wasn't as down on it as I would expect to be based on my general feeling about the first movie, and so that gives me sort of some pause about what I rated it originally. So
yeah,
I don't know.
All right, so the overall, I think the overall rating was 3.38, close to a 3.5 for the first film. Seems low to me.
Yeah, in my memory, I feel like I rated it higher than a 3, but that's
me
fine.
too. I feel like I put it around a 4, but I did.
It was Brad, by the way, confirmed.
Okay, thank you, Randy. Yeah, it's hard for me to scroll across on this little.
No, I get
it.
Yeah.
The original was super interesting in the fact that it was Krasinski sort of breaking out into a horror genre. It's something that he hadn't really worked in before, and also taking on the role of writer director. It was his directorial debut as far as being a director, so it's
clearly his baby.
Yeah, it's his thing.
Absolutely, one front to back.
It very much feels like it was intended to be a one-shot, self-contained story, but it made a lot of money, so I'm sure the studio was like, hey, we'll give you money to make a sequel if you want.
Now,
and that's the reason this movie exists. To me, it feels that way.
Since bringing
well, yeah, that's every sequel that's ever existed,
well,
actually.
yeah, there is...
true.
There is not a whole lot of trivia going on in this, so I figured I'll just sprinkle it in throughout. But you are correct that Krasinski originally stated that he did not want to be involved in a sequel, but the producer convinced him to come over and pitch his ideas to the studio. About 3 weeks later, they asked him to write the story with the idea that the directorial duties would be handed over to other filmmakers. And then Krasinski finally offered to come back as the director, jokingly suggesting that he was Jedi mind tricked into signing on to the sequel. So it wasn't his intention originally. I remember us talking about this around the first film, of a sequel and stuff like that, and how it was unnecessary when it got announced, because I feel like it got announced super quick after that first one dropped. in my head that
I don't
kind of
remember, to
sticks
be
out.
honest,
Yeah.
but-
And also too, Emily Blunt admitted that she was initially hesitant to join the project as she didn't feel that she could top the first movie. However, she was on board after she heard that John Krasinski's pitch for the bus scene. I guess, like, I don't know, they're married, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Pitching that in bed, huh, Jim?
Yeah, no, they had a business meeting about it. I was
Yeah.
like, what are you fucking talking about?
So apparently that was what sold her the bus.
The bus scene is also like 3 seconds long.
Yeah.
The
It
bus
was cool.
scene really, I mean, it was kind of cool, but to me, that one really smacked of this is a Universal Studios ride.
It's a
not
ride,
film.
yeah.
Yeah, that did
Like,
kind of, yeah. that
We're
did.
going in reverse now.
It felt
Reverse.
very much like, it felt like they could definitely adapt that into a ride. It felt that way to me.
So it was cool to see. I remember, like, from the first film, some of the problems I had with it. It was kind of cool to see this flashback a little bit, the origin of how it all kind of came about. We see that Jim, I'm going to call him Jim.
Yeah, that's fine.
We see Jim like go into a regular old store, which was in the first one where the kid gets a toy or whatever. But, you know, he's buying some fruit, going to the old baseball game, and there's like Shanghai on there or something. They're like,
the
well, what
TV.
happened? And they're like, oh, a bomb or something. They don't know. It's on the news,
Yeah.
but they're not
It's very
showing
signs,
aliens
actually,
running around.
weirdly enough.
And then from the baseball game, we see something like coming into the Earth's atmosphere. And then just like moments later, there are aliens swarming this town. So the implication they get, they're kind of building out this world, this type of situation. The implication I got was that this was it wasn't necessarily an accident.
It's an invasion.
Yeah, it's some sort
Yeah.
of invasion, because if they were
That's a
just
good
on
thought,
if they were just on some asteroid and the asteroid crashed into Earth, well, that would be isolated. That wouldn't be in
Yeah.
fucking Shanghai. So
I mean, not necessarily though, because asteroids do break up in atmosphere.
guess
So
that's
theoretically,
true.
that could happen. But to your point, actually,
Yeah.
that does make sense because, like, on some level, because they are, they're going to centers where people are, and like with that in mind, like to me, it doesn't hold water in the respect that if you're actually cognizantly going somewhere to invade it, you go to and you're led by your sound, audio waves.
Yeah.
You don't go to a small town in
That's
Alabama
fair.
or whatever.
That's
You might
fair.
go to fucking a major metro. You might go to New York. You might go,
And that
I
invasion
don't
was
know.
like crazy quick. Like they see it falling in the atmosphere. It's not like it falls
Yeah.
like, across the pond or anything. It's like
And
seemingly way off.
we don't see a ship at all either.
Yeah,
I'm
it's
actually like
just-
getting flashes of what bothered me about the first movie, which is
I think we're
that
gonna
it-
dive into that territory.
okay. Well, I don't want to interrupt you. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. I meant as a group.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because like the first one, the big one for me, and I think this wasn't a problem so much for you guys, if I remember right, but I think Brad might have agreed with me on this, is like there was something about like there was a nail in the floorboard that caused all the havoc at the end game. And to me, it just felt like, I remember being, for whatever reason, I don't remember the specifics of it. I was like, this isn't realistic because of X. And I was like, this movie hinges everything on its lore and its need to, because of X, Y, because of A, B, and that sort of thing, following a train of logic. If it doesn't, if it puts everything into that basket and then sort of like just rubber stamps a few things and just kind of like lets it go without, like, it's harder to overlook things that don't make like logical internal logic sense with the movie when the movie takes its lore so seriously and its rules so seriously. So that was kind of my problem with the last movie. And this movie has shades of that, I will say.
Yeah, it does. Even thinking about that, you're right that why would this invade if it's an invasion? And that's the thing, is it leaves it so open and loose, which I kind of like. There's no like info dump about what all's going on, and I appreciate that. But also, too, in this world building, I remember from the first one there were flaws that I'm going to talk more about in this film, because I feel like no matter what happens in any of these films, it cannot reach a 5-star film for me, because there are internal problems that like go down to the basic core of the lore.
Like the logic of it.
Yeah, the overall logic of it. And you're right, it does seem to kind of seep into this film as well, again, of like, okay, you want to give these implications. You don't want to give it all away, but you want to show us these visuals. And I enjoyed the opening scene of like seeing the invasion. But then again, once you start to pick it apart, it's like, okay, why did you have to make it Shanghai? You know, you could have made it Atlanta, Georgia, and then you could have at least been like, well, that's close enough away. But that really does imply like a worldwide takeover. And if that's the case, you're right, then that's problematic. Why the fuck would they start in a small ass town in like the middle of nowhere? That doesn't make a lot of sense.
I mean, you could explain it away, but you would be pontificating. Like the movie doesn't give you that, and that's by design in some respects. So it's kind of hard to knock it too hard for not giving you like all the inner, like if that is the case, like this movie thrives on what you don't know. Like that's how it succeeds on any level. So I mean, to me, there's an argument against that as much as there is for it. But you're right. Like it sticks in your craw though, because the rules and the logic of what's happening are the source of all tension. It's not between the characters so much. It's not, all the characters in these movies are loving people that are generally like
it's how to survive
in each other's corner. Even the like the little monster people, the
cannibals.
I thought this movie, the cannibals or whatever, they do nothing specific with them. They leave it up to your imagination. And to me, like I was like, this is a missed opportunity because this is their chance.
Yes.
And I know it's a PG-13 movie, but this is your chance to make a counterpoint to Walking Dead and every zombie movie that's come out in the last 10 years.
It even says as much in the synopsis on IMDb that I read. It's like the monsters aren't the only thing to be worried about, but like we barely get a taste of like the other human life that are around. Cillian Murphy's character is even like the humans that are left aren't worth saving, and like,
he's like,
but
you
then
don't know
also
what's out there, what's going on, and it almost feels like a tease for
most of the other characters we meet are worth saving. They're actually pretty nice, except for like the 3 to 5 shitholes, that are together.
Who are like weirdly diseased and shit, and it's unexplained as well.
I will say though, I took that, just a quick point to that, I took that as they were kind of starving.
That maybe. Yeah.
But one thing that I do appreciate though, to counterpoint that, and I feel like this came up a lot in the first film where it's like these positives, the counterpointed with immediate negatives. I feel like it's going to come up a lot. But one thing to counterpoint that I personally appreciated in this sequel that does feel like it's definitely not essential. I wasn't clamoring for a sequel to this, but getting a sequel and going to watch it and like thinking like, hey, that's a pretty good film. One thing that I appreciated about it as a sequel is it didn't feel the need to make this world like so much bigger. It wasn't Terminator 2 where there's a new monster and it's bigger and it's badder than before and it's like an evolved version and it's so much more. It's like they kept it still pretty low key. They kept it like true to its seemingly like nature, like it's not like all of a sudden the world that we're in this second film is so much bigger or more dangerous or there's a new threat or anything. It's like,
they don't do the advanced zombies or whatever. They don't do Super Saiyan 2.
I appreciate
they're
that,
learning
though, because a lot of times with the whole mentality, but like behind a sequel is we got to make it bigger, we got to make it better, we got to make the monsters like 10
and
times
they kept it
bigger
a small story. Like even character count wise, there's not a lot of characters on this. The most you get is you get the cannibals, and then you also get on the other side of the fence you get the which I guess would be the counterpoint to The Walking Dead, which is the successfully thriving community squad. Islanders, who like I have problems with that as well. Just like, I don't know, the lead guy there or whatever, some of the decisions he has, like the way he dies, he goes out really stupidly. Yeah. And it just, it's stuck in my craw a little bit. Like he's like, okay, he knows enough to draw this thing away by driving his car real fast, honking the horn. He's driving to this radio stations so they can enact their plan and potentially stop this thing from hurting people.
Yeah.
And when he gets there, he stands with his back to an open fucking door and says, I think I got to go back for my family. Maybe I should go back. It's like, you were standing there too long, and obviously this is what's going to happen to you. Like, this is you're suddenly turning stupid, and like there's like, I don't know, there's some emotional argument could be made that he was acting emotionally and panicking or whatever. But it just seems like they just redshirted this dude who they kind of posited as like, I don't know, a bigger role to me than what they ended up giving
also
him.
like a survivor. You know, they have this community. It's on the island and stuff. So you think like, oh, but also too, you could counterpoint that with, they've been isolated from the incident. They immediately saw that the creatures couldn't swim. You know, they made this community on the island. They haven't had to deal with it since. So then you could chalk the ignorance up to that. They haven't had to survive.
I don't know. Maybe this is because they were afraid of the cannibals, but I got to think that early on, what the guy describes is they had 12 ships lined up, and there were only 2 that got off or whatever to go to this island once they realized this, because people were panicking and trying to jump to the front of the line and freaking out. And that's an interesting, like, that's fine in and of itself on an individual level. But then they get there, and what they do is they set up a fucking radio station that they have to play fucking Frank Sinatra tunes as a code to get the right people, I guess, there. And there's people starving and dying and eating each other around a bunch of boats, and they haven't figured out that these things can't swim yet. They've been there over almost 2 years at this point.
That's a
They've
fair
never
critique.
I don't know. Like,
also,
that doesn't make
why
sense.
Why wouldn't they record a legitimate message?
That's what I
instead
didn't.
Of playing a cryptic song.
I didn't
Right, exactly.
think about
That's
that until
both of
you
those
just
things.
said that, and then as soon as
They
you
could
said,
have
it,
been
I was
like,
like,
they can't
why?
swim, find an island.
Yeah.
Just say that on repeat.
Yeah.
Head to water. I honestly
I figured out the code because I'm Willy fucking Wonka.
I kind of wish that we would have seen more of the like other people that have survived. Like the family core is definitely pulling us through the story here. It's about the family. That's the story that's being told. But like nothing has really changed within the family from the first movie, other than Krasinski like sacrificed himself. He's no longer part of the family.
Yeah, they have replacement Diddy though.
They switched out Cillian Murphy with Jim.
Yeah,
Or
basically.
no,
they got a different white dude in place.
They've got a baby that they have to keep alive, obviously, but that's not much different from keeping like the young ass kids alive from the first movie. You know, they're. So I mean, like, I just want to see more characters. I was more interested in like hearing Cillian Murphy's story. I wanted to hear more from like the creepy cannibal community. Yeah. I mean, we heard about how his family died, basically. But
we pieced together some stuff.
Yeah,
but yeah, you're right.
I wanted to see
was
like
very light.
I want to see how the cannibals live. Like, what if they captured one of the kids and like you got to go save the kids from the cannibal like community? Like, how do they live? I just want to see more of that because like the island community was like interesting because they were segregated and sort of like oblivious, but also like they're just living normally. So it's not like crazy. They're just living life.
I'm going to disagree a little bit in that I don't feel like the super need to see the cannibal people.
Yeah,
because
definitely agree.
Pretty much in most zombie films that you do that aren't immediate, like that's what you get. I mean, you get this isn't a new idea. You get people who are struggling to survive and they live in shambles and their clothes are all fucked up and their minds are starting to go and their moral compass is pretty much like disintegrated. Like, I don't need a lot of imagination to, kind of like see what these people are doing. I disagree. I don't want this film to go into a cannibal camp.
There's potential there to not just be like everything we've seen before, though.
Right, no, and that's the thing.
But I just
the thing is they introduced them just enough to where it's like they could do that, but instead they just make them really pacified versions of everything we've seen on Walking Dead for 10 years.
True. Yeah, it feels very Walking Dead. For sure.
And that's the thing is like, if you want to enter the Walking Dead realm of, okay, man is the real enemy, that's fine. And that's actually, it makes a logical kind of sense for the kind of movie that you're making. But you need to have more to say about it than you just have to outwit them. And then it turns out there's a bunch of yuppies across the island. Like,
yeah. I agree.
I don't know.
There needs to be more to it, or I wish there was more
if
to
you're
it.
gonna have it, have something to it
'Cause-
besides just just a trial to go through. That's it.
This movie is just like it's a trail movie. It's like we start at the beginning of the trail, we walk to the end of the trail, and then we're sort of separated, and that's it. There's no consequence to this movie. Nothing. Our characters are not different at the end of the movie as opposed to how they start at the beginning of the movie, other than they are separated.
I will say that honestly,
that's about it.
Yeah, I generally agree with that, and I think like the characters in both this movie and my memory of the last movie, as much as the actors are really great and some of their actions make a kind of sense, you're right. They don't have like so much of an arc.
Nobody
at least
evolves,
nothing that's
really.
At least nothing that goes beyond what we would consider like just really basic screenwriting. Like, okay, big sacrifice at the end of the first one. Makes sense. Dad sacrifices for the kids. Girl finds her strength. And that's at least kind of an arc for her. But the rest of the family doesn't have much of an arc. They just kind of have shit happen to them. And in this movie, that's kind of doubled down on. Shit just kind of happens to these people. And they try and make some sort of emotional thing between the little girl and Cillian Murphy, but it does not play for me. I don't know about you guys.
Also, like, whenever Cillian Murphy goes after the girl to, like, stop her, and then he has a change of heart and is like, you know what? I found a boat. Let's go ahead and carry on with your mission. I think it's a good idea. Why didn't they just, like, go back and get the other half of the crew and then do it? Like...
And also, too, to be fair, when he's like, I found a boat, they specifically describe it as it took like a certain amount of time to get there, which was like a day to get there.
Yeah, and it took 2 days.
Did he find a boat within the morning hours and then get back and then go there again? And it took a whole nother... I mean, there's just... They play it, and from the beginning of this series, this world, they play it pretty fast and loose with specific details, and that is something that I agree kind of like sticks in my craw, because if you do this world, it just like shows weak world building, I think.
Well, everything hinges on that. It's like you don't think about these things so hard when it's Reanimator, because you're interested in the bombastic nature of what's happening. In this movie, it's trying to be very grounded, and being grounded means that you apply a certain level of reality to it that this movie does not fully comport to, and the last one didn't either. So it like the raised edges, though small, are very noticeable.
Yeah,
I will say they don't sand down those edges as hard as they should.
There's a few sequences in this movie that build tension brilliantly, much like the first one. Like just to give a solid positive to this movie, like the beginning of the movie where the kid gets his leg caught in a bear trap, and like they're making all this noise. He's screaming uncontrollably. He can't keep himself quiet, and the monsters are coming. You're like, oh my god, how are they going to get out of this situation? And they do. Another sequence where the stupid, like the little boy in this movie just keeps fucking up. He's fucking up a lot. Where he like sneaks out, and then the monster like hears him and comes in, and then he closes himself and the infant inside of the little like safe or incinerator, whatever it is, and it actually gets locked in, and they're running out of oxygen. Like that's a tense fucking scene. Like how are they going to get out of it? Of course they do, but there's just a lot of like really solid tension in this movie, and they build it really well.
Yeah, and that tension is built on the logic of the monsters themselves.
Yeah.
But the thing is, like, the where things falter is always where they expand out from that. Like, this movie clearly started, the idea for this movie, or these movies, clearly started with, what if they're these monsters that hunt people based on sound?
Sure.
And like that's where everything branches out from. Everything is written backwards and forwards based on that. And the writing backwards part is trying to figure out, okay, how do they operate then in the world? Why are they here or whatever? Even if we aren't told that information, there's an internal logic being presented about that we are supposed to, there's a certain realism that they're going for. So you have to really comport to that if you want it to play. And it just doesn't. So like I think that was my big problem with the last one, and this one definitely has more of the same.
Well, and that's the thing where I said that no, they can never make, and in my opinion, they can never make a movie in this franchise that would ever be a 5-star, because here's the thing about it. And part of it, you're right, they want it to be grounded, and they even root a lot, or this opening scene at least, in the real world as it exists. It's not apocalyptic yet. It's not after these things. It's like in the moment, what is happening and how do people react to them? So in this thing where almost immediately people start to sense that they hunt by sound, in a world like it's foolish to me to think, well, the result of that is then everybody is quiet so that they don't hear. It's like, no, you literally then turn on every sound available. You have cop sirens. They're at a baseball field. Literally boom boxes. Literally, you don't try to mask sounds. If they can literally only hunt by sound, you turn on every sound that is available to confuse them.
I see your point, but like there's a limit to that to a certain point because power doesn't always last, things like that, and people don't necessarily want to put themselves at risk by starting every fucking alarm in a station.
But I mean, you go to a stadium like headquarters or whatever, and that's not where the sound originates. It comes from speakers that are out in an actual stadium. So like you're not really actually putting yourself at risk. Yeah. It's like I'm turning on the switch here, and like way out there in the stadium is where the sound is coming out.
The monsters would eventually find the speakers and rip them to shreds. But one thing we were having
they're very fast.
We were having this conversation after we watched the movie, and Juice made that point, and I thought that was a really smart point, and something that was illustrated in the original movie is when Krasinski takes his little boy out of the waterfall, and he's like, "Hey, you can scream," and they can't hear because the waterfall is louder than you. Shit. And I was like, well, why not just like find a waterfall and build a house next to it?
Yeah.
Just live next to the waterfall and fish out of the stream. Like there's food. Just live there.
Water's not going to stop falling.
They went to the waterfall to get food.
Well, and I think the problem I had is like, okay, they might find the speakers and rip them apart, but the implication that they give is that if sounds give enough back, like, right now in society, there are literally weapons that we have based on sound that like people use on protesters and shit.
Like the brown note.
It's like, you couldn't.
Yes, the brown note.
Like the brown note. The military couldn't organize. I don't know. It makes you suspend. In a movie that's so desperate to like root itself,
it's a very
in
easy
real
solution.
situation. Yeah, it's like this
at the end of the day.
You would not go quiet, or I would like. Yeah. My initial reaction is like,
you're telling me that an audiologist in a bunker somewhere can't figure out that feedback causes a reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah. And also, I'll do you one better. In this movie, particular movie, we find out that these things can't swim. So theoretically, fucking Hawaii is fine. And they should have been working on a fucking solution. Why aren't they flying over every city in America blaring like this is Mars Attack shit? Yeah. This is shit they figured out in fucking Mars Attacks.
Right,
just blare fucking feedback over every intercom you can from a fucking helicopter that they can't jump to. You got your solution. This this should have taken 2 months max.
One comment
they can't
I
swim.
made.
This is inspired by Mars Attacks.
One comment I made, I don't know if it's a negative or a positive, but it was something I like spoke out loud to Bob, is the monsters, I guess in both films, but in this one specifically, because we see a lot more of them, they just come in and wreck shit. They're not eating people. They're not like feeding. They just come in and like beat ass. Like they just fucking slam the fuck out of people and then just move along. I thought that shit was like kind of
very destruction derby.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like they're feeding. They're not like, oh, we're here for food. They literally come in and just beat ass and then
they're just trying to kill as many people as possible. It's like they're playing a video game and they're like each person's another point.
I found that pretty entertaining.
No, that's true. I didn't really consider that, but
they swing wildly and people just go fucking flying and they're just fucking done.
They got those long ass arms and they're swinging.
It's like
they're
doing it
fences.
for fun, or something.
It kind of seems like that because they just bust and they're like, "Fuck you and fuck you and fuck you," and
they're
then
just a bunch of wild dogs just trying to tag as many people as possible.
That was the problem too that I had with the first one. I didn't think about it as much in the second one because they kind of moved towards society. But it's like, okay, a thing of bottles falls at a factory and that is enough noise to attract them. It's like, did they just kill every animal that exists in the world? Because I mean, even in Florida, like in the summertime, the amount of noise that crickets make, or like bugs and stuff, like
cicadas.
Those things, the cicadas and shit, like they would be losing their fucking mind trying to find where this noise source was. It's just like it takes amount of like it requires you to suspend belief more than you're willing to in a movie that's so grounded, I guess.
And also, you've got, like, they just established in the first movie, and they didn't really discuss in this movie, but they also go after animals. So, like, the whole ecology should be dying at this point. Like you don't have birds to carry seeds and propagate plants, which leads to, like, there's a circle of life shit stops functioning if you kill all the birds that are tweeting.
Yeah.
You know, like, I don't know. There's a bunch of, like, little things. And that's the thing is, like, this movie, and I'm just going to reiterate.
Twitter
like,
is life, says Randy.
It's just like, it doesn't make, if you're going to hinge your movie on the real, like the very realistic idea, like, try and make this as realistic as possible, and then have huge, like, logical fallacies in it, that's a problem. I mean, we saw that shit in Signs, and for the most part, people didn't really, like, just, like, gloss that, and, like, or at least not critics. They were like, yeah, well, I mean, this shouldn't be happening. They're coming to a place that's made all entirely of water. Why are they doing that? Like, shit like that. We find that out later, but
Also,
that's one
atmosphere.
thing. Yeah, exactly. That's
come to
one
Florida.
thing, though. That's one thing. That is not fucking. This movie has like a dozen things that don't make sense about these things, how they function. And if you're going to hinge your whole movie on how they function, and every amount of tension is built on how they function, then it's a problem. It's a big problem for me.
Did y'all get, like, Jurassic Park vibes when you were watching this at all?
Dude, the sound, I leaned over to you in the middle of the movie and I was like, dude, that sounds like Jurassic Park.
There's one scene that is straight out of Jurassic Park in this movie. There's, like, I don't know if it's a waterfall. I don't know. There's, like, a stream running down a mountain or something like that, and one of the creatures just, like, sticks its head straight out of it like a velociraptor does in Jurassic Park. It's like straight out of Jurassic Park. Also, like, the very end when they're in the radio station and they're, like, trying to quietly creep around. It's just very reminiscent to, like, the kids creeping around in Jurassic Park towards the end of the movie, like in the kitchen and the control room and shit like that.
Yeah, but I mean, in both movies, you're being hunted by a monster.
Sure.
So, I mean, I don't think that it's cribbing necessarily, as it is just the logical extension of that scenario.
Maybe.
Personally. But, like, I mean,
the
I also
definitely was, like, sounded like...
It sounds like the Raptors and shit. Yeah.
Or even, like,
I guess I didn't pick up on
roar
that,
of the T. Something about it, I was
Maybe
like,
the T-Rex,
that legit sounds
Yeah.
like stolen from Jurassic. It legit
about
did. I was like, holy fuck.
No, yeah, it does. I agree with you. It sounds very, very similar.
Well, we've covered a lot of negatives. I do want to go over some positives, because this is a movie this is a franchise that I feel like I was a little harsher to on the last episode, and I really banged on a lot of these same drums.
Just banging them.
So let's just banging these goddamn drums. But some positives.
With a knotted
One,
rope.
okay, whatever you say.
Continue.
One,
Godzilla
the
reference.
Foley in this movie is great. And I would argue that the soundtrack is not my favorite, and it's a little bit, I don't know.
What did you say was great?
Foley.
The Foley artistry, like the sound effects.
Okay. I'm not familiar
Like
with that
the
term.
audio mix. Oh, Foley artistry is like the people who make it sound like it's raining outside and shit.
Okay, interesting. All right. I really didn't know that term.
Yeah, I think it was that, and they mixed it really well, and it, like, all that works.
Yeah.
The acting for what the characters have to work with, very good.
Very
All
good.
around.
Very
Again,
good.
Yeah.
The CGI on the monsters, very good.
Yeah,
I would say.
Mm-hmm.
Like, for CGI boogans, they're pretty goddamn convincing.
It
Blue
actually
boogans.
disturbs me when their heads, like, swirling around and, like, coming apart. I kind of hate
It's
it.
an interesting design.
I hate
Like
it.
the big
I
ass
hate
like
it.
eardrums or what,
Yeah.
like the bones that reverberate. Yeah, it looks pretty good.
I don't like it. It fucks with my phobia a little bit.
But
They
like, more than
kinda
that,
look
it looks somewhat convincing. Like,
Yeah.
it looks
Yeah,
convincing
yeah.
enough to get into it.
I'm not gonna lie. I guess this is kind of another negative.
Don't lie.
I really actually enjoy this film. I don't want to rail on it. Thank you, Randy, for bringing up the positives. But again, the overall in this one, I was like, they kind of look like the Demogorgon from Stranger
Oh yeah, we had that
Things.
same argument last time. I think,
Yeah.
where we made that
Yeah.
same note.
Yeah,
It's definitely, well, it's because it's got, and both of those things look like seem like partners-in-law with the Cloverfield monster. So it's just kind of like
that's fair. Yeah,
the in way of monstering things now, where it has no eyes, it gets around some other way, or no visible eyes, really, not easily visible eyes, and it has like giant legs that bend the wrong way, probably 4, maybe more. Like, it's just kind of like these monsters are kind of coming out of the same factory, it feels
Have
like.
we
And I think
covered
Industrial Light and Magic
Cloverfield?
did this one. Yeah, we did.
The OG?
I'm pretty sure we did.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so.
We definitely did Paradox and
Yeah.
Lane.
Yeah.
For sure.
Oh yeah.
But I'd have to double check for Cloverfield original. But so yeah, I think you're right to say that they're similar, and I just kind of think maybe that's the style of monster we have now. I don't know how much I would attribute to cribbing more than stealing, I would say. You know, like I don't know, but and also like in this case, I would say that I would argue that the monsters in this movie, to me, look more convincing than in any of the other ones we just mentioned.
Yeah, like the believability and like tension between these monsters, I did think was legit. Like whenever they were coming, I felt like myself holding my breath, like oh fuck, or like when she's in the train and she can't hear it and they're there. Like Bob said before, there was real tension here, and the monsters played a lot into that. Like they're fast and they come in and they just wreck shit. There's not a whole lot of like planning around these things. They're obviously very strong in some capacity. Like even against just regular weapons, it's hard to trap them. It's hard to hurt them, and so they serve that purpose, I think, very well, and they do look good. They're just kind of like gray, like a dark gray color, so it's easy to make them look like believable. You don't have to do like a whole lot of CG behind it, and what's there like does look good and believable. So yeah, I agree.
I also think like if we were to like Robert, I'm sorry, were you going to say something? I think I cut
No.
cut you off.
Finish your thought. I was going to say let's go and wrap it up, but go and finish your thought.
Oh, well, my thought was like if I was going to workshop this script, I was just thinking again about like the island community or whatever. If you're going to go that route, which I still maintain is like kind of breaks the whole concept on some level. But if you are going to go that route, they set up some things again that I feel weren't fulfilled with this movie. Like the one that I'm thinking of specifically is Maddie, is that her name? Whatever, the girl.
Sure.
She is showing one of the children on this island how to attack one of these monsters. She shows them, oh, if you hold this thing up to a speaker, it'll make them fuck up. And you can see them having this conversation through gesture and miming, because the kid doesn't speak sign language or whatever. And I felt like in that moment, I was like, okay, so at some point this kid is going to make good use of that and come through in the clutch. They didn't do that. And I feel like if they wanted to give this movie an emotional core, if they really wanted to go hard on the emotional thing of this movie, have Cillian Murphy at least. Cillian Murphy? That's right, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, I'm breaking. My brain's broke. Anyway, Cillian Murphy or the girl die trying to make this happen and have the little boy complete the mission. Something like that. Like, I don't know. I feel like this movie is lacking an emotional center, which is weird because I really like because of the performances that like none of the characters really act very logically to me. Like the mom is like, you have to go out after my daughter. And it's like, how are you going to convince this dude that doesn't even want you there to go out and put himself in danger to save your daughter? Like, I don't think that's going to, I don't know. She's appealing to something that maybe she thinks is there and maybe she finds, but
he doesn't want to go at all, but then gets there and says, like, we're going to finish your mission, kid.
Well, and that was another thing they had to add in this intro scene to introduce the character of Cillian Murphy to make sense. He had to
make
be
a replacement, yeah.
But I don't even think they were able to hammer that home. Like, yeah, he was at the baseball game, and then you can make implications through dialogue that he was closer to the family than we ever even see. But still, you do have to stretch that logic.
And the other thing is like you're talking about a guy that makes all these decisions that are self-defeating in some ways, heroic decisions we find out. But like the whole interplay between him and the daughter or whatever, it just doesn't make sense to me because, like Rob's pointed out earlier, Cillian Murphy's character is not given a pathos beyond I'm sad my wife is dead. And I don't know, like I guess his role is moving from coward to hero, but I don't see him as being much of a coward as so much as a guy trying to survive things.
I agree, and I think even that logic,
I don't give him much of a pathos.
is a little flawed in just a realistic sense, I guess, because at first, when they're first introduced him, he's like, you can't stay here. There's not enough food. There's not enough anything, blah, blah, blah. And so I'm thinking like he's taking care of his own family. But then it turns out like he's there alone and he's not taking care of anybody. And I would think anybody kind of in that realm, especially if they were a friend of the family, would be like, I need someone to attach myself to. Like, I'm not looking after my wife. I'm not looking after my own kids. Here's a wife again. Like, what are you just going to live in a granary alone eating the limited food that you have?
Yeah, you might as well have pulled the trigger on yourself.
Yeah,
at
so
this
what's
point.
your motivation right now? I don't know. Like, so that seemed a little, at first I was like, okay, this dude's looking out for his own family.
You know,
I get it. That makes sense. But it's like, no, he's there alone. What is he doing?
You know,
It's
I
a
will say, however,
Scarecrow
that it,
origin story. That's what it is.
I will say though that I give this movie credit for not doing and maybe it's because it's the Emily Blunt is John Krasinski's real life wife, and this was written with them as a couple, and he couldn't bear to do it or something.
My wife.
But a lesser movie,
where we're
a
going.
lesser film, especially a PG-13 horror film, would have shipped the two, her and Cillian Murphy, in some capacity, and would have tried to make a romantic connection. Where this movie doesn't rely on romanticism at all, which I appreciate them not going that route. So I just want to point that out as a positive as well.
That's it.
I think we need to land the old plane.
Land
here.
it.
Let's do it. Let's rate this
All
movie
right.
out of 5. Gentlemangs, how do you feel? Juice, kick us off.
Yeah, I had a pretty solid idea about where I wanted to rate this coming in. I don't think it's been faltered much. Man, it's weird because it feels so easy to kind of like hammer on these finer details that when you're critiquing a film seems so apparent. However, I will say that in the theater, I enjoyed this ride, and I appreciated a lot of things about what this movie did. Again, like as a sequel, that I feel like this isn't necessary. And yeah, I was like, I'm glad they didn't try to go bigger. I'm glad they didn't try to add this new, bigger, crazy monster. Like it really, they just put Cillian Murphy in for the place of Jim. They kept it real low key. Yeah, they were split up and they had their own kind of things that they were dealing with, but it was really down to earth, grounded. They didn't make huge stretches in logic outside of what I have problems with just the whole world that they have built from the first movie even. So I hate to just like keep railing on this movie. It feels very easy to do for some reason, but I really did like watching this movie. I don't feel like it's necessary. It is easy to pick apart in some places, but the acting was good. I like the world and I like the monsters. I didn't need more from the cannibal people. I didn't necessarily need more from the island people. The things I think that we brought up today is like the cryptic song. There's no need for that.
Yeah.
What else that we've brought up today that I didn't?
Well, the island nation that somehow Japan isn't.
Yeah. I guess the idea like New Zealand should be fine, Japan should be fine, Hawaii should
anywhere
be
that they
fine.
didn't have something crash into the earth.
The Bahamas,
should be fine.
So also the idea of like it's a small town. Why the fuck would they invade there immediately? So. I mean, those are some things I didn't necessarily consider. I still like the idea of the monsters. I can see where there's a conflict in making this movie. So you have this idea and it's pretty solid. Like, yeah, there are these monsters. They have this simplistic look. They're just out there hunting. We don't know why. We can't talk with them. We can't communicate with them. They're just fucking our shit. So, I get that, but then they just don't do enough to insulate themselves from these critiques. That being said, I thought I rated the other one higher than I did at 4. In my mind, I had rated it a 4. I plan on coming in on this movie at a 3.5, and I think I'm just going to stick with that. I don't necessarily like it as much as the original. I think Jim was just better, and like the family kind of surviving was kind of a better idea, and having the baby and stuff like that. But I feel like it's pretty consistent at least. And so I'm going to rate it the same score. And so this one's going to come in at a 3.5 for me.
Alrighty.
Yeah, Bob.
Yo.
Out of 5. I don't think you like this one as much as me.
I don't think I do either. It's not a bad movie. It's enjoyable. It's a fun little romp. The acting is what really saves the day here. There's not a whole lot of story. There's not a whole lot of character development. I think my biggest gripe with this is that it does not it doesn't move the needle at all. The story doesn't really develop. Our characters are just like in slightly different places at the end of the movie, like physically. They're not like changed in any way, really. They haven't experienced anything that they haven't already experienced. It's just like a road movie where nothing much happens, and it drives me nuts that that's the case, because this was a money grab type movie. So I don't know, man. It just didn't really need to be made, but at the same time, it's not like that offensive. It's just fine. It's a middle movie. They're going to make another one. The story's not over. And that drives me nuts. It's like, this is a bridge. We made a bridge movie.
Fuck Empire Strikes Back.
Right. It's the worst one of the whole franchise, no doubt.
Ah, you're a monster.
I don't know. I just feel that it's like, I don't know. This will get us to the third one at least. Like it's a little icky to me. I definitely like it less than the original. There's way more emotional heart in the original movie. The characters do have some mad character development, and you just feel their relationships way more. It's just, you know, it was meant to be a self-contained story, and that I just really feel that here pretty hard. With that said, I'm going to give this a 2.5. It's fine. It's well made. It's well crafted. The acting, again, saves the day. Randy, how you feel out of 5?
Yeah, so similar to Juice, I kind of feel a little bit of regret about my previous score, which I think you said Soju was a 3.
Yeah, you gave it a 3. Bobby gave it a 3. I gave it a 3.5. Brad gave it a 4.
Like similarly, but opposite to you, I feel like maybe if I was to look back, I would have put it more to 3.5. Because these movies are effective, are effectively moving the tension needle for me. Like they, at least in the moment to moment sense, not in the overall lore sense, which this movie unfortunately hinges a lot on, and that's where things really start to fall apart for me. And is in thinking about it. But in the experience of watching it, I do get like, oh shit, I jumped a couple times. This movie does depend on jump scares. It doesn't depend on a lot of gore because it is PG-13. So, I mean, and you know, I don't know. I think one thing that I wanted to touch on is this, which is I don't want to be too harsh on this movie also, because, you know, I've spent so much time that we've talked together railing on the idea of, you know, a remake or an adaptation of a thing or a remake or a reboot or a fucking sequel part 10. And, you know, this is a sequel. And like Rob said, in some respects, it's a cash grab. But at the same time, this is a successful original property. It's only in its second incarnation rather than its egregious 10th or something. It is successful, and it is touching a nerve with people, and it's PG-13, which makes it accessible to a whole group of kids who otherwise only get shit like Truth or Dare. So on that level of like the industry level, this movie is not unique in and of itself. It's pretty conventional, I would say, in a lot of ways. But the one way it's not conventional is that it does not conform to what a standard horror PG-13 romp would be. It's not aimed at teeny boppers. It's aimed at anybody who cares about their family in some respect, and generally middle America type people.
Not Bob.
Yeah, totally. Nailed it.
Like that's the primary audience. This is a movie that takes itself seriously and as much as this one in particular can be seen as a cash grab. I don't think that the franchise as a whole is. And it's tough for me to, on one side of my mouth, be saying like, why can't there be more original movies? And then shit directly in the mouth of this one franchise
of John Krasinski.
Some people kind of like that, Randy. So, I mean,
yeah, okay. Well, I don't. So
that's
from my perspective,
thing, Randy.
I don't want to do that. I don't want to be a part of
Hotline
making this
Kings,
movie pay.
Is that your thing?
I want this movie to succeed. I want movies like this to continue to be made. And, you know, even if it doesn't comport to my specifications of what qualifies a great movie, I am glad that this movie exists. And I'm glad that the previous movie exists.
I agree.
I wanted to put that out there. All that said, because I was kind of harsher on the last one than on this one, I'm going to be a little bit kinder this time around than I would have been otherwise.
Okay.
So with that in mind, I'm going to give it a 3.5. In my heart, I would say this is a 3 and the previous was a 3.5, but they're swapped, palette swapped, and
I feel that, yeah.
We'll deal with the fallout of that some other day.
The fallout.
Fallout.
Get him, boys.
With Randy's 3.5, that's going to put our aggregate at a 3.16. Let's jump
Still
over.
lower than the first one, though.
True, yeah, as
So
it
that's
should be.
fair, yeah.
Let's jump over into our Rotten Tomatoes segment, see what the critics and users think about A Quiet Place Part 2.
Certified dead.
All right, ladies and germs. We are entering the Rotten Tomatoes segment of this program, in which I'm going to give these two gentlemen the chance to guess what the aggregate scores are for this film on RottenTomatoes.com, both the critic score and the user score. We're going to start with the critics, as we always do. And I think we're going to start with Soju today on the critics. There are 219 reviews total.
All right, that's a good sample size.
Yeah, it's not a bad sample size, and it's a fairly new movie, so I imagine this is going to be a number that fluctuates maybe by tomorrow. So sorry if it changes, but
I feel like the involvement of Emily Blunt, Cillian Murphy, and fucking Jim. I think the critics are maybe going to lean more favorable because of that. I don't know why. I just have that. I don't know. I think they would just be kinder to them. I think it's going to be positive. I think it's going to be too high, higher than I think, but not egregiously. I'm feeling an 82.
82. All right. 82 from Soju. Bob, how are you feeling?
I am of the same mind. I feel like it's going to be like way too high, like pretty damn high. I'm going to go with an 85.
85. All right. Well, both of you guys had the right impulse because this is a 91% positive.
Jesus,
91.
That's way too high. Bob, you get a hell skeet.
Hell skeet.
Yep. 91%. The critics' consensus is a nerve-wracking continuation of its predecessor. A Quiet Place 2 expands on the terrifying world of the franchise without losing track of its heart. And I would disagree.
91 is so high.
Yeah. Wow.
91, man. I saw that and I was like, fucking really? Like, am I so jaded?
I feel like for the next year we're gonna be in this realm of nobody has
Hey, it's
gone
a movie.
to the theater.
Yeah.
It's a movie that's out.
We
Thank
love
God.
it. 90%.
Hey, it's a movie.
Maybe.
It's
I
a
will say,
movie.
I will say to that end, I kind of had that reaction. I had to bring myself down a little bit. I was like, wow, this is great. And I was like, man, it's great to hear the Foley and the surround sound. I feel totally immersed. And I was like, okay, I can't let that influence this as being better because I'm in a better viewing experience.
How have you been doing this for 7 years and I've literally never heard the term Foley before?
I don't know, because we've said it
Really?
like a lot.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Just on my phone.
Just on my phone.
Just on my phone, bro. Makes bleeps and bloops, but the Foley
Wake
artist
me up
makes
when
them
we're
up.
talking about the Yabos, bro.
Yeah.
All
You
right.
sound like Cord Taylor over here.
Let's go with the audience score now. There are 2,500 plus verified ratings. Let's start with Bob this time. Bob, what do you think these audience scores are going to be?
Hi, my name is Corey Taylor, and I give half star for the Yabos. I think it's going to be high as shit too, man. Again, damn, 91. Probably not as high as the critics. I'm going to go with an 87%.
87%. Okay. All right. Soju, where you at with this one?
I do not want Bob to get a hell skeet sweep.
I know you don't. Lord knows we all are aware.
I don't know. I think the audience, I think it's going to be high, but I'm going to take the bottom end. So I'm going to $1 down and take my boys, the Project 86. Never let me down.
Never once did.
All right.
Ever.
Well, Soju, it looks like you owe somebody something or other because this
let
is
me
a
down?
94%
Holy
positive.
shit. It's just a movie.
Bob.
That's why. This
Yes,
like there's
Bob.
gonna be this
Yes.
time period of
Yes.
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 Yes, Bob.
Bob, that's
Yeah.
hell skeet sweep.
Hell yeah.
There you
Damn.
go. I like your hat.
I like your hat.
Nobody's wearing
Yeah,
a
so
hat.
I guess we're not men of people or critics in this one. We're just a bunch of crotchety
Dude,
old
I
fucks.
legit think
I guess.
it's a just a movie kind of thing. I think I think any movie that we've covered this year, Kong versus Godzilla, I think anyone that's come out this year has been significantly higher than we even thought it could be. I think it's
I disagree with some of that, but like, yeah, with this movie, it's definitely higher. And I think that part of that is just that this movie, the last movie did so well that at least for users, last movie did so well that people are already invested in this. They liked seeing that John Krasinski was back in it. They gave all the crowd pleasing moments, I think, for people that aren't, dissecting like we're dissecting.
Yeah.
And, to some extent, there's some value to that. But I also think that there's having people back in theaters might be moving the needle a little bit. But I don't think it's going to move it like 15%. I think what's doing that is how recent this movie is. Like, it just came out. I think that it's going to temper out in the coming weeks on RottenTomatoes.com. These movies have kind of knee-jerk reaction scores a lot of the time. So
at the
a lot
end
of times
of
you'll
the
see
year,
100% of Rotten Tomatoes, and by the next day it's not.
At the end of the year, we can do a look back and see like where are they now and compare and contrast.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually.
Don't commit me to anything, Rob.
I'm committing you to a lot.
Well, you're written down. It's written in ink.
I'll give a top 10. I'm not committing to more than that.
Whatever, dog. Cool.
So yeah, that's our Rotten Tomatoes seg.
Thank you, Randy, for the seg. Next up, we're going hunting. Let's talk Cooter of the Week.
Straight chillin'. Cooter of the week.
Juice, what's a Cooter and why are we hunting him?
Thanks for asking, Bob. Cooter is a character type and a straight chillin' exclusive. Cooter must hit 3 of these 5 points to be considered a Cooter. We want the Cooter with the most points.
What are the 5 points?
The 5 points are manipulation, smug arrogance, sexual deviance, overall looking attire, and overall patheticness. Boys, who are we taking to Cooter Court this week?
There's not a lot of options in this movie.
Yeah,
Everybody's pretty much on the
that
up
little
and up,
baby's
huh?
real cootery.
Who is?
the baby.
that little baby.
The infant.
Ugh.
Yes.
Stealing all the oxygen.
God, just so smug
The
about
only
it.
guess I have, and this is, we barely see any of them, is like the Cannibal Squad, because they're like trying to like abduct the
presumptive
little
cooters.
girl to eat, I guess.
It seems a little sexual.
It does
at
seem a little
times,
sexual, yeah.
doesn't it? They like kind of strip her over some of her
Well,
clothes.
they take off like all of her gear, but they don't strip her nude.
True.
well,
or anything
sure,
like
yeah.
that.
I mean, she's like 15.
Well,
God.
no, yeah. I mean, logically, from a movie making perspective, obvious reasons why. But also, like,
PG-13.
Yeah.
these are more monsters than men at this point. They're all like scabied up and all this shit, and they're really doing their work to make them look like inhuman. But they still just, that's the worst thing they do is they take off the lady's clothes and they tie up the dude. And then the only people that get hurt in that fucking scenario are them. And
I like that
one
scene,
dude gets his
though.
leg stabbed out. It
I liked
worked out
where he
really
was like, "Fuck you guys! I'm gonna make these bells a jangle."
Jingling, superfluous.
superfluous.
About to get my jangle on.
Damn.
He's just sitting there and he's like, and brings all the cooters to the yard.
Also, I was very confused by that scene. We didn't really talk about the scene like in a critique standpoint, but the girl just tightened the knot around his neck. I was like, just reach up and loosen the knot.
Dude, yeah. He also was holding the biggest fucking knife in the world as he's choking in the water. And I'm like, I understand
shit.
that maybe you're getting jerked around a little bit, but you've got just cut it back here or something.
Getting jerked around a little bit.
Just a little bit. Maybe he was probably just afraid of making noise, is what I gather. And then at a certain point, he's like, "Fuck it, I'm making some noise," you know?
Well, you're drowning.
Yeah.
You're fucking drowning.
But I mean, before he was drowning. Before that, he was making
Well, okay,
noise.
sure. But yeah, the drowning thing, when he's underwater in particular, he's just like he's struggling with this thing while a knife is in this hand. He's just
Oh yeah,
trying
yeah,
to
yeah,
pull this
yeah,
down,
yeah.
and
He
I'm
should have
like,
cut it off.
Cut the
Yeah,
fucking rope.
Yeah. Let the bodies hit the floor. You know what I'm saying?
Let the bodies hit the floor. I don't think there's enough evidence to convict these purported Cooters as much of anything.
I don't think so either, man.
Yeah.
That's the only guess I have, really. You know, I don't. It might be
you
Cooter.
can't- you would have to-
characters in this. Yeah.
We would have to speculate everything about that.
True.
Really.
What about Cillian Murphy?
What about old silly Murph?
No, I don't
I mean,
think
he's got his dead wife. That's kind of weird.
Why didn't he bury that, bish?
God damn.
Why don't you bury her, you fucking creep? I don't know. Yeah, he's fine. It's
Yeah,
fine.
he's fine.
He's a broken man. It makes sense.
He sleeps with a corpse. It's fine. It's fine.
I mean,
Oh, does he
pathetic,
sleep
but-
there? Is that?
Probably.
I guess he sleeps adjacent to that or something. I don't
Probably.
know.
I don't know.
Oh well.
Let's
Yeah.
just assume yes.
I think it's a Cooter-free movie. It's PG-13. Cooter-free.
Yeah.
There are no Cooters in PG.
Officially Cooter free.
That's not true. I shouldn't have said that.
I don't think that's quite true.
Yeah, it's not. They're Cooters in PG movies, for crying out loud.
That's definitely true. I've seen Mrs. Doubtfire.
I've seen Home Alone Part 2, so there's definitely Cooters in that movie.
Oh yeah, Rob Schneider's in it. So
That dude is a built-in Cooter.
built in.
You build them in. Like cabinets.
Yeah.
That's
Yes,
it.
just exact. Rob Schneider is exactly like a cabinet. Exactly like a fucking cabinet.
All right.
Got
yeah.
so many angles, it's almost just a curve.
Almost.
True. All right, we're
close.
Cooter free this week. Let's go ahead and let our hair down. Getting into the social hour. We're talking about what we've been watching this week.
Hey gang, what you been watching?
Randy, what you
Hi.
been watching?
Well, I did actually get to watch a few things this week. Not a ton, but I watched. I began to watch The Wire season 2 with Becky, which,
Nice.
of course, maybe my favorite show of all time. It's just shy of Breaking Bad. Kind of still reaches that echelon for me, and it's like all seasons in that show. It's a great fucking season, and I'm enjoying it thoroughly for like the 7th time. I don't know what else to say beyond that. I'm only an episode in again, but every time I watch it, it's so fucking smart, that show. It's so smart. If you have not watched The Wire, please understand that I know that it's got a huge hype machine behind it, and I'm just playing into that, and it's probably falling on deaf ears if you haven't watched it already. But just know that it's a good fucking show.
It's great.
It's
I
a
love
good show.
season 2
It's
as
worth
well,
your time.
man. With
Yeah,
that,
I used to.
What's that
Sorry,
dude's
go ahead.
name? The wild ass guy that like shows his wiener at
Ziggy?
the bar. Ziggy? God, that dude.
Yeah,
Something
he's
else.
in fucking It Chapter 2. He
That's
is
right,
a much more interesting character in this show, in my opinion.
True.
Yeah. Anyway, so I think, I mean, if you haven't watched that show and you're defying it because the hype machine is too much behind it and you're afraid it won't live up to your expectations, just go in blank slate and just let it roll over you. Just be patient with it, and it'll give you rewards. It'll give you something. Just trust me on that.
True.
Based on, hold on, I'm waiting for Soju to put on his earphones. Hurry the fuck
Waiting
up,
for
Soju. There he is.
Oh,
Okay.
really? It's my turn.
No.
No. I wanted to have you listen to this because on your
Oh,
recommendation, I
sorry.
watched Sons of Sam.
Okay. How did you like it?
I liked it quite a bit. I thought that shit was
Yeah.
very fucking interesting. And it was like, I don't know what to think about it I don't know what my conclusion is about what the reality of that situation was. Like I'm a little split on it because the show really makes a very compelling case that like by middle of episode 4, I'm like, this is a pretty fucking rock solid case. I mean,
Yeah.
I feel like my perspective on what little I knew about this case has been totally shifted, and maybe this is going to shake something loose or whatever. But by the end of the episode, I'm like, I don't know for sure now.
Dude, and that's I did a mini episode on it. It hasn't dropped yet, but one of my things that I kind of point out in that, talking about it, is I was like, man, at the core of it, ultimately, I feel kind of bad for this guy because
Maury?
I think
Yeah.
even after this documentary presents to these big crowd of people, I was in the same boat as you. It's like, yeah, I mean, because he would ultimately come out and be like, look at this evidence. And you could be like, yeah, there is evidence, and some of it's circumstantial and some of it, but ultimately,
none of it's rock solid. None of it is
exactly.
None of it's irrefutable.
And he was so invested in it and so obsessed. By that second interview, he really did kind of start to come off as a crazy person. And at the core, I was like, I kind of just feel so bad for this guy because it was his life's work. Yeah. And at the end of the day, after all of this compelling evidence, and I feel like, yeah, that could be true, but also at the end of the day, like, okay. Like, even if I was able to accept that it's 100% all true, it happened like decades before, and they already talked about how like the process had kind of disintegrated, and a lot of the people who he thinks were involved were dead anyway. So it's like, what are you gonna get out of it?
Well, yeah, and the thing is, like, the other thing about it is that drove me nuts, which is the tie-in with the Satanic Panic and all that stuff, which Maury
obviously
either unwittingly or not, like, he definitely like put a burr in that particular boot, and so did Geraldo and all the fucking sensationalists that made it what it was.
Way out of hand.
Way out of hand, to the point where people like lost their livelihoods, lost their jobs, went to jail, were put on death row for shit that was made up. That happened.
But it was interesting.
Yeah, but it's fascinating to see how one thing cascaded into another. It's a really compelling story. Mm-hmm. If I'm like just on the facts of it, even if I'm not sure those facts add up to the same conclusion as the investigator.
I agree.
So I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, good. I'm glad you liked it. I liked it a lot too.
And interestingly, they showed in that Satanic Panic van, this sort of leads into my next thing. They showed clips from a video that I had actually recently kind of watched on Red Letter Media's Best of the Worst series, where they randomly pick VHS tapes with just all kinds of crazy shit on it to watch and review from a filmmaking and just comedic perspective. And I really like this
VHSs?
show. More, they get sent like really bizarre VHSs, and they either put them on a wheel or they do some random game to make them watch a certain show. It is, and they've watched some really horrible, both morally and craft-wise, horrible shit. And one of them was a supposed training video for police to spot satanic ritual shit, where the cops clearly spray painted their own like what do you call it? Anarchy, whatever.
Pentagram?
The pentagram, thank you. The pentagram, but they did it upside down and like all sorts of shit. And then they have a scene with a lady in a bikini, and there's a cop like over her, like, you can see on here, there's little marks here, and they'll draw marks here. And it's just this lady on the bikini, and he's weirdly caressing her. It's very, very fucked up. And they make rightful fun of that shit. I know. The Satanic Panic is one of my favorite topics and one of the worst things that happened.
That's what our straight chilling movie should be about.
Satanic Panic?
Yeah, Santana.
Can't get enough Santana.
So smooth.
No, that's the devil's music. Can't listen to that.
That's what it should be about, and then, I think. We're working on it.
Just to be a little quicker here, the next thing, the last thing on my list is a movie called The Stepfather. Who's seen The Stepfather? Anybody?
No.
I don't think so.
So The Stepfather is one that I had is on the fringes of my awareness. I didn't know much about it except that it starred Terry O'Quinn as the titular stepfather, who is John Locke for Lost fans. Yeah. And it's like I want to say early 90s, late 80s or whatever. And as I understood it, it had a relatively decent reputation. It wasn't known as schlocky necessarily, even though it kind of sounds like a schlocky B movie. I watched that and I enjoyed the hell out of it. I thought it was like, it wasn't as schlocky as it could have been. It played it straight, and it was pretty conventional movie. Like the plot points are pretty expected. For the most part, but it goes hard, and I give it some credit for actually making the idea. It's like every person with a stepfather, it's their nightmare. It's essentially what it is, and it works really well. And Terry O'Quinn is a fucking damn fine actor. He does a great job in that role. I started watching the second one. I have not finished it yet, but I will come back with information about that next.
I don't want to do spoiler warnings, but
That's the movie Parents with Randy
Yes.
Quaid. You're thinking of.
Which is fantastic.
That movie's nuts.
Just bizarre. Yeah. No, this one is a lot more conventional than that.
Okay.
This one is like the most heightened Lifetime movie you will ever see. Is essentially how I would frame
Sign
it.
me up.
Yeah, I think it's worth a watch. I would recommend it. That's my watching.
Sweet. Juice, what you been watching?
I feel like I've been watching a lot of things. Let me see if I can recall them. One thing I definitely watched was the second season of Love, Death, and Robots. I've talked about that first season a lot on this. I tried to show Bob one the other day, but I finally dived into the second season. It's shorter. And so with anthology series, when they're shorter, then, the individual segments carry a lot more weight. If they're not good or they're mediocre, then you're like, I definitely think the second season is not as good, but there were some cool ones in there. Of course, it's a mixed bag. And some of it's tough because some of it, there was like the opening segment. I don't know why they do this. The opening segment was kind of a little more like comedy based, and actually it was like a pretty decent little story, but the animation was just like so wonky for me that it kind of bothered me. And they opened with that one, and I think they did that one on the last one too, or they rearranged the order where it was more kind of like comedy based to start it out. And that seems very strange for me because ultimately, I think there's like 8 segments, and a majority of them at least have a serious, sometimes like philosophical tone to them. Not always necessarily horror, but I think that might have been like the one and only kind of like comedy based one. I was like, why do they do this? And it had a very, very particular animation style, but there was some cool segments. I will say I am gonna do a mini episode on this one as well, so that will be coming to the hashtag Hard With Us Patreon level. But there was, I think my favorite segment was this Christmas one. It is not Christmas season at all, but I want to kind of give you guys the premise of this. Essentially, it's one of the shortest too. It's only like 7 minutes. So if you get a wild hair to watch this, the premise is these two like very small kids wake up early to see Santa Claus. It kind of reminded me of that anthology short that made the Easter Bunny like horrific. This horrific
holidays.
Yeah, where it's like this terrible bunny Christ dead figure mix. It's like that where Santa Claus is essentially this horrifying monster that judges you, and not even like in a Krampus style like monster. It's just like horrific, but that shit got me pretty good. It was effective, and it's like 7 minutes long, the whole short.
Got you as in scary or made you laugh? Because you're laughing now.
Kind of both. It's just so distinct and troubling, but it's also animation. Like little kids are like, "What the fuck?" I think it's worth a watch. If nothing else, 7 minutes of your time, check that shit out. But again, I will have a mini episode coming out on that whole, like, just kind of my favorites from that whole series.
Remind us in December.
Yeah. What else have I been watching? We've been talking about that Meat Canyon a lot. It's still on YouTube. That shit. Who was Simon posted that shit, and like we've been going back and forth on the Slack about some of those videos that come up. It's so troubling and yet so kind of like hypnotizing to me. I keep like watching them, and they're so fucked though. What else have I been watching? Fuck, I can't remember. I feel like I've been watching a lot. We watch Army of the Dead.
True.
I did me and Bob did a mini episode on that'll drop eventually. Zack Snyder's zombie movie, that's Netflix original. 2.5 hours long. Fuck that. It's a zombie / heist movie, which is an interesting kind of premise. I was telling Bob though in our mini episode, Randy probably knows, it reminded me of it. I just kept thinking of that fucking Rick and Morty episode, the heist episode, where everybody's just like, "You son of a bitch, I'm in," or whatever. It's like all based around like a heist movie or whatever. It's so ridiculous. You don't know
I remember that. It's been well. No, I mean, I feel like
It's
I've
from
seen
the
it. I
newest
just don't
season.
recall Well,
Yeah.
that's why I've only seen it once. So.
Okay, yeah.
So my memory of
Anyway,
it's not
so
clear.
it's that kind of a movie. Not great, but check out the mini episode on that. Other than that, I guess that's it. I'll probably think of something later, but I'll save it for next week. Bob,
Yo,
what have you been watching?
I watched a movie called Santa Sangre. Alejandro Jodorowsky's movie from like 1989.
I've never watched a Jodorowsky. What's? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
It's wild, man. I'd never seen this one before. This is a blind buy for me. Put it on. It's sort of like it's a strange mashup of like a weird cult movie and like a super weird carnival movie. It starts off with this kid in the carnival, and his dad is sort of like the ringleader. And his dad cheats on his mom with like this new lady that joined the carnival. She's like covered in tattoos, like head to toe. His mom is also the leader of this crazy cult, and they let their patron saint is this like woman that has no arms that was like beaten and tortured, and they like worship this no armed patron saint. It's wild, man.
Pretty good gig if you've had your arms taken off, I guess.
Yeah, it's shit just like gets crazier from there. It's a Spanish language movie. It's not really like anything I'd ever seen before. It's like very vibrant and colorful. The characters are insane. There's a lot of like clowns running around. There's prostitutes. There's some cocaine. It's all over the place. I dug it though. I recommend checking it out if you want to watch something that's totally different. Check out Santa Sangre. What else I saw? I watched Accepted, which is that Justin Long comedy.
Ask me about my wiener.
Ask me about my wiener.
The only thing about that movie I know.
It's pretty funny, man. I've always enjoyed that movie. It's got old Seth what's his face
Rogen?
No, not Seth Rogen. I'm sorry. His Jonah Hill. It's got Jonah Hill in it.
Oh.
And
Jonah
it's like,
what's his dick?
Jonah what's his face. He's in it. It's like one of his earlier movies. He's I think he's probably bigger in that movie than I've seen him in. He just seems to get smaller with every movie.
Yeah, he's like putting in a lot of work.
Yeah, he definitely is. That movie's funny as hell, though. Like, I've always been a big fan of Justin Long. Justin Long applies for a bunch of colleges, doesn't get accepted, so he decides to start his own like fake college so that he can like prove to his parents that he can be successful. And he got accepted to this college. Then the acronym for it is like SHIT, SHIT, shit. It's
Clever.
funny.
Whoa, sounds like a very mature film.
No,
Now,
it's a big
what-
dumb
what-
comedy.
Sounds very mature, Bob.
Pinky's out. When in doubt.
Is it Criterion or?
Yeah, I got that on Criterion. It's
Oh shit!
That's
Criterion
Steel Blue.
4K is $5,000.
Got a big segment of Kubrick talking about how it's a great film or something.
Yeah, Kubrick on Kubrick's wieners. He talks about his wieners.
They ask me about my wiener scene. I don't know how he talks actually. I don't have any idea how Stanley Kubrick sounds. So
It's not
that
like
was a failure.
Also, yeah, Juice already mentioned Army of the Dead. Got through that. We recorded a mini cast. I'll reserve my my comments if you're interested. Check out the mini cast. It'll be posted the next week or two. That's really all I've been watching this week. That's about it. Other than Quiet Place Part 1, we already kind of touched on that with our review and all. Without further ado, we got one more segment to get to, and that is, of course, our Hotline Scream.
Hotline Scream.
If you are listening and would like to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, you can hit us up at 904-638-3231. We got a few voicemails we're getting to this week. First up, we're going to hear from Diego. Let's hear what he has to say.
What's up, Straight Chillin' crew? This is my second attempt. It's Diego. I'm going to be late to work because I'm calling in a second time, but I'm okay with that. I think they will be too. Just listen to the last cast and thought the segment on the Patreon subscribers was really funny. You guys will definitely be getting an invite to our wedding, if not officiating it. Probably going to propose on the cast. I think time-delayed proposals are going to be in soon. It's definitely sweeter when you wait for it. So, yeah, on the topic of Juice's prompt about reoccurring dreams, I used to have this dream. I haven't had it in a little bit, but I had it often enough to talk about it. I definitely don't like heights. I go on roller coasters, but I don't enjoy them. But I used to have this dream where I'd be driving and I'd be on a highway, but these highways, they'd be like super fucked up. You know, it was like veins in a human body, you know, not in the way that they looked, but in the way they were set up. So it was just like crossing paths everywhere and super high up. And, you know, every once in a while you'd go upside down. And I'd have this dream so often that it would feel like when I'd be driving on these highways that are like looping and going upside down, that I just had no control, like a weightless feeling, super high up. And at any moment, I'd be thinking in the car, I'd be like, why would they make a highway system like this? You know, people could fall and die. Thankfully, I've never, in my dream, fallen and died, so I guess that's a good thing. Haven't really read up on that, but yeah, I love the show. I've been listening for a while now, and since Logan has called in a few times, I decided that I'd give it a shot, see what my voice sounds like in the podcast. It's gonna be weird, so yeah. All right. Yeah, see you guys later. Keep chilling.
Yeah,
it is going to be weird.
Dude, I had those dreams too. So I talked about my recurring dream of the big crazy bridges. They're always like sub-real, like, I don't know, where you're driving up very steep, where I talked about my bridge. But I have had those surreal highway things too. I guess it's a driving thing, but it is a height thing where... in mine, they're so crazy, and you're up so high, and they're kind of like intersecting that I find myself getting like distracted by them, and that adds to the danger. Like the area is so surreal, and you're like, how is this possible? Or why, again, like, yeah, why would they make a highway so dangerous, so high up, so intertwining that you kind of get engulfed in it, and you're like, oh my god, where am I going? How high am I up? Like, what's going on? And I've never
got so many angles, it's almost just a curve.
Exactly. Damn, twice in one cast. But anyways, I agree. I normally die or fall, at least in the bridge dreams, where the bridge either collapses or it's too steep to where my car kind of like can't sustain it. But in the highway dreams, I don't. It's just very concerning to me, confusing, like, oh my god, this is not a safe place to drive. So that's interesting. I do have those dreams too, Diego.
You guys have real infrastructure nightmares. It's interesting.
Yeah, apparently.
Weird. Also, yeah, propose on our podcast, and then we'll officiate the hell out of
Dude,
that.
That would be a dope ass benchmark. Yeah, somebody proposed on our cast. You know, no
minor update. Diego was fired, and
that's right.
Yeah.
That was 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, get fired so that you can leave a voicemail on our podcast, please.
And because of that, the marriage isn't going forward.
Also,
it's just a real mess.
We're still waiting on those straight chillin' tattoos. So go ahead and tag us on Insta when you
tag us on your body, and then tag us on the tweets.
If you get a pumpkins tattoo, I will love you forever.
I want Randy's face on your ass,
dude. If my face is on your ass,
you don't need a tattoo for that, buddy.
I'll slap it for you.
Slap Randy's face. Yeah, Randy's face is on Heidelberg's brown eye. That's just.
I'm not slapping the brown eye. I'll slap.
That's
the cheeks,
You got to slap him in the ass. In the ass.
It's very explicit how we do things around.
Oh
here.
God!
Slap me in the ass. Thanks for calling, Diego. I hope you're still gainfully employed. If not,
Get a tattoo.
get it. Yeah, just start getting tattoos.
Yeah, why? No time like the present to get a tattoo when you get fired.
Start ripping cigs and getting tats. Next up, we got another voicemail. We're going to be hearing from Kelvin. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey, what's up, Straight Chillin' Crew? It's Kelvin calling in again. About last week's prompt, which was about dreams and sleep paralysis and stuff like that. And I only had sleep paralysis once before, but I never experienced any like hallucinations or anything like that. But about my bad dreams or nightmares, sometimes I have like apocalyptic dreams where like there's like Star Wars like ships in the sky like shooting missiles down onto like the place where I live in the dream and stuff like that, and like near misses and like all this with like lightning strikes and all that stuff. Usually ends up with me waking up after I like die in the dream. And also there's dreams where one example of a dream that I had that was bad was there was a witch inside of like a grocery store I was shopping at in the like fruits and vegetables aisle or section. And out of nowhere, this witch comes up behind me and lifts me up by my armpit and tickles me. And I wake up with the sensation of having been tickled, which I don't know about you guys, but I'm quite ticklish. And I'm not afraid to admit it. The opposite of that are good dreams, which are basically me going to like a school and like remembering like, you know, like, I don't know, memories from childhood and stuff like that. But anyways, that should be it for this call. So, keep chilling, guys. Hell yeet, hell skeet, and yibbity yabbity babbity. Have a good one, guys. Peace.
Sounds like somebody has like a secret hidden down, ashamed tickle kink.
Yeah.
Wow.
I think Kelvin might have just had a run-in with a vegan in his dream. Just hanging out in the veggie section, going around tickling folk. I mean, that's vegan stuff, right? I don't know vegans.
What would you be saying?
Can we make a movie, a horror movie that features an evil produce tickle witch?
Nope, it's going to be about whatever I said it was earlier.
Whatever that was is definitely happening.
We're committed to whatever I said before.
What was that? What did I
I like that Kelvin was I'm ticklish and I'm not afraid to admit it.
You know, it takes a strong man.
Who's afraid? Bob's super ticklish. He gets all kinds
Don't touch me. Get your little greasy paws away.
behind the scenes.
You're an evil tickle witch.
Who are you calling a cootie queen, you lint liquor?
You lint liquor.
Yeah, I'm also
lint
ticklish
liquor.
to the point where, like, whenever I go to the doctor and they like check lymph nodes or whatever, I was
shit.
like, I'm just giggly as fuck. It's just super giggly.
Rob
but of course, I don't.
his shit comment was hilarious.
It is.
Well, it's the word shit. Rob thinks that's very funny.
Rob's a scat man.
He's a cat man. Yes.
Scatman Bob. That's what we called him in high school.
All the scat boys and all the scat girls. I don't know how that song goes anymore, but
That's not how it goes.
no, that's part of it.
Is it?
Yeah,
That's a new
there are
sound
lyrics
bump
to that
right
song
there.
that are not scat.
Oh,
Scat.
boys.
By speaking of, if you, I'm going to bring this up actually from what you've been watching. Watch a show called Todd in the Shadows, One Hit Wonderland, and it's about Scatman. That fucking episode is really interesting because the Scatman is a fucking fascinating person.
Todd and the Shat O's.
Oh boy, you are giggling now. I know it.
Nah. Thanks for calling, Kelvin. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Kelvin.
Always good to hear from the mailman. One more. We're going to hear from old Tom. Let's hear what he has to say.
Hey, boys. It's Tom. How you doing? So you're reviewing a movie called Oxygen that I know nothing about. I mean, I used to watch Oxygen with my ex-wife. We'd watch like that Snap show that was pretty good, where it's like women and killer situations that were pushed too far. and then they snapped, and then they murdered their bitch husband, or their bitch boyfriend, or their bitch, I don't know, other relationship with a man. It was they usually don't get away with it. So if it's something like that, maybe it'll be an entertaining movie, but I don't know. It's been a while since I've watched any Oxygen, though. Like, that's on an expanded table. That shit is expensive as hell. All right. Well, you boys take care. Have fun screaming, creaming.
I think Tom might be huffing Oxygen, actually.
And who the fuck is paying for extended cable these days? Good Lord. I can't imagine.
Yeah, I don't know.
Can't imagine.
That's a popular channel.
Even.
I've heard of the Oxygen channel.
Beyond my wildest dreams.
If you want to see some bitches get murdered, then watch Oxygen.
So it's a show.
No. It's a TV
Oxygen's
channel.
the
It's a
network.
station.
Oxygen is the network that's
He's
focused
like, so you're
on
watching
women killing men?
Yeah, I guess.
No, it's like Lifetime, except not Lifetime.
But it's focused on women killing men?
I don't know.
It's focused on women in general, and like Lifetime, that means a lot of revenge tales, probably.
Damn.
I guess.
Murder. Murder.
I've never watched
Men are
Oxygen.
people too, okay?
Men
I
are
loved,
just vicious.
not all men. So the Oxygen, like, he started out that call by saying, like, so you're reviewing a movie called Oxygen, which I never heard of, and I thought he was about to be like, why the fuck aren't you playing my favorite movies? I thought that's where he was going with that. I was about
That's
to
a
be
man
like,
who loves Batman Forever. I'll tell you right now, Thomas, A+ fan of Batman Forever.
A+ fan.
He loves that movie. I think it's his favorite film. So
That's what I heard.
I'll leave you guys with that.
That's what I heard.
the more I think about it, the stranger feels.
Yeah.
Thomas, shouts out to my man.
Yeah,
I
Thomas
know you
is-
love Batman Forever just as much as I do.
Thomas's roses in bloom, son. Let me tell you what.
Okay. Whatever that could possibly mean.
Oh,
Are you calling a cootie queen, you lint liquor?
You fucking lint liquor. Thanks for calling, Tom. It's good to hear
Sounded
from
way
you.
dirtier than it needed to be.
You goddamn lint liquor. Why is it Brian Cox? It's turning into Brian Cox.
You
Listen,
dirty
you
fucking
cocksucking
lint liquor, you.
You lint liquor.
You goddamn cootie queen, you.
I gave myself hiccups. Okay.
Did Randy just say butt liquor? Butt liquor. Our prices have never been lower.
Never been lower.
Randy like that.
I got it. I got you.
Randy knows.
That is definitely one of the most best surviving jokes of The Office, for sure.
Oh, gotcha.
Butt liquor.
You know,
Our prices have never been lower.
because of Jim jokes.
Sure.
Yep. Thanks for calling, Tom. Again, if you're listening and want to call and leave a voicemail to be featured on next week's show, hit us up at 904-638-3231. We're going to be back next week with a brand new show. As always, we're talking about The Conjuring 3. The goddamn devil made me do it.
Dude, that's
Satan must be stopped at every opportunity.
That's going to be my defense.
Mm-hmm. That's right. It's also going to be on HBO Max this Friday. Easy to find.
Maximum Drive.
Slam your eyeballs into it. Get ready for next week's show. Until then, as always, rate, review, and subscribe to us on iTunes. You can hit us up on Twitter at str8_chilling, on Instagram at Straight Chilling Podcast. You can send an email to our website, straightchillingpodcast.com. If you want to join in on the daily Slack channel conversations, just hit us up on one of our social media outlets, and I'll send you a link to do so. Don't forget about our weekly Joe Bob live watch parties. And until next week, as always, all you mother truckers, please keep chilling.